Welcome to the Strategic Veteran, where we chart the course from service to civilian triumph. I'm Adam Peters, a veteran, entrepreneur, and your fellow navigator in the quest for a life of impact and fulfillment. My mission is simple: to empower you with the tools and stories that turn challenge into opportunity. Having walked the path from active duty to where I stand now, I understand the search for purpose that comes with hanging up the uniform. It's a path I've walked, with its trials, its tribulations, and its victories, and it's a journey we're on together. This podcast is more than just conversation. It's a beacon for those seeking to redefine our missions through entrepreneurship. It's about igniting the entrepreneurial spirit that lives within us, the spirit that compels us to create, lead, and make our mark on the world. Here we connect with veterans who have built businesses, sparked change, and found their purpose in the marketplace of ideas. They're not just surviving, they're thriving. They've transformed their service into startups, their experiences into enterprises, and they're proof that you can too. So whether you're scribbling business plans on napkins or stepping into the arena of innovation, remember, you're not alone. You're in good company. So let's explore these stories of transformation and take the first steps together on our path to purpose. Let's begin. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Strategic Veteran. I'm your host, Adam Peters, and today we have the honor of speaking with Ron Nussbaum, a former U.S. Marine and dynamic entrepreneur, I'll have to edit that, but who has made significant strides in the construction industry. Ron served for 3.5 years in the Marine Corps, where he was stationed at Camp Lejeune with Tutu Golf Company and completed a tour in Iraq in 2008, which we were just talking about, and happened to be in the same place at the same time. His military career was cut short by a knee injury during the workup for his deployment to Afghanistan, a pivotal moment that significantly impacted his path. Following his military service, Ron transitioned into civilian life and embarked on a new journey in residential construction. His experiences in the field led him to identify a critical gap in communication within the industry. This realization inspired him to found BuilderComs, a revolutionary software platform designed to streamline communication and improve collaboration for builders and contractors. BuilderComs has been described as the air traffic control for construction communication, ensuring seamless interaction, access to project-specific information, and documentation. Ron's entrepreneurial journey has been marked by significant achievements, including being accepted into the 10X Incubator and being recognized as a top 20 startup at the International Builders Show. He is also the founder of Golf Company Ventures, through which he aims to provide vital support to veterans. Ron's story is one of resilience, innovation, and a relentless pursuit of improvement. His core values of faith in God, family, and the American dream drive his actions and decisions. He believes in taking action, controlling one's challenges, and committing to change. His message to veterans and others transitioning out of the military is powerful. Our service should not be the reason why not. It should always be the reason why. Join us as we delve into Ron's journey from his military service to his entrepreneurial successes and explore the lessons and insights he's gained along the way. So let's dive in and warmly welcome Ron Nussbaum, a true embodiment of what it means to be a strategic veteran. Ron, welcome to the show, man. Thank you so much for being here, brother.
Hey, man, it's great to be here, and I'm excited, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. No, thank you for giving up your valuable, busy time and your schedule to be here and entertain a guy like me, man, who's just curious and likes to have conversation and put those on the internet for veterans to see, consume, get value out of. I'm really, truly grateful for that for you, man. So let's get started, dude. Talk about where you grew up, what your childhood was like, and what inspired you to join the Marine Corps.
Yeah, so I grew up in Akron, Ohio. I would say, a very great childhood. I mean, I grew up around, my parents built the Amway business. I always had the entrepreneur thing happening, as well as working for a company. And it was a great life. I mean, it was. I feel like it was. But, we all go down all roads or whatever. And I decided, I thought I wanted to party and have a good time. That's what I was doing before I went to the Marine Corps. So if there's any, I got out of high school, decided we're going to have a good time for a little bit. And I went into the Marine Corps when I was, just about 22. Yeah, right around there. Would have been sooner. So I got a tattoo on my neck. When I was having a good time, thought I was living life. And I decided that I wanted to be a Marine. I didn't decide I wanted to be a Marine. So if you ask my mom, when I was about 5 years old, a Marine came to our church and walked in with his dress blues on, and she said, I all I wanted to do was get my picture with him. She says that's the day the decision was made that I was going to be a Marine. It just took me some time to come to truce with that. For me, what it came down to was I wanted to know if I had it, if I had what it took. Like, not everybody can go do this, and I wanted to know if I could. I wanted to check that box and go kick ass.
That's so important, because the more of these conversations I have with veterans, that seems to be really the case, right? Like at its core, it's really, do I have what it takes to do this? And I don't know. I thought basic training was easy. I was a little disappointed. So obviously, I had what it takes, but also, like, there is that element, right? Like, you don't know, and you're not going to know what that's like until you go through it. But, I find talking to veterans, like, that is a big commonality we all have, is like, do I have what it takes? I want to challenge myself. And there's no better way to challenge myself than to see if I have what it takes.
Well, yeah, I mean, think about when we were signing up. Like, we were at war, signing
Yeah.
up
What year did you join?
to be in the infantry, 2007. So, like,
Okay, so yeah, I was in for 4 years by the time you had joined, but you
yeah,
were
so
spending
like
those 4 years partying.
yeah, so like like what you're signing up for. So it's either like you want to check that box and go do that, or you're mentally insane. Like, and maybe there's a fine gap in between those two. That the military likes that. Like, they like
It's
that.
it's yeah, it's like a little bit of both, I think, right? Like, you're a
Yeah.
little bit crazy, but you're a little bit like wanting to test yourself, for sure.
But so I'm sitting at the recruiter's office with my dad, and I go to take a piss or something, and the recruiter, the sergeant major there, sergeant whatever he was, told my dad, "I'll never be a Marine." And he said, "Well, why is that?" And he's like, "Because that tattoo on the side of his neck. That's not. He can go anywhere else, but he's not going to be a Marine." And the dude wouldn't tell me that in the recruiting station. My dad told me this on our drive home. He's like, "Well, I guess you're going to have to decide if you want to do something else besides be a Marine, or whatever that looks like." And I said, "Well, why?" He said, "Because," he said, "with that tattoo, you'll never be a Marine." And then I spent the next 12 months getting that son of a bitch removed off of my neck, and I became a Marine. And I blew everybody's mind at the recruiting place. But I really, like, that's what I felt like this is what I was supposed to do. Like, it was more of a calling. Like, I'm supposed to go do this, and whatever it takes to get there is what I'm going to have to do. And that's what I did. And I walked into Paris Island and put my feet on the yellow footprints. And there's a lot of people that before that never thought that that would be even an option, or that I would get to that point.
Well, you showed them, didn't you?
I guess that's one way to put that.
That's incredible, because I joined in '02, spent a year on delayed entry, and very much similar. I got my first tattoo when I was 16, and then I had some trouble at home, between, my dad and my ex stepmom at the time, which really kind of threw my life, just out of whack or whatever. But I'd already signed this contract, and I ended up with another tattoo on my forearm, and my recruiters were pissed, right? Like, because they already had to get the one waiver for the tattoo that I had on my back that's not showing, and then I go get another tattoo on my forearm, and they're like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Right? Like, you can't do this. And I just think it's funny, because, like, look at me now. You know what I mean? Like, and this is very much how I looked at my career. I had full sleeves, like, probably 5 years in. It's like, with the GWAT, they just kind of, I'm surprised so late, coming in 2007, because the Army had already changed its tattoo policy right then, because they're gearing up for the surge. And, they just needed bodies, warm bodies that could go honestly fight and die, get blown up. Right. So I'm surprised you had that challenge, but.
Well, the Army offered me 40,000 to
And you
not,
turned it down
and
because
not.
you wanted to be a
I
Marine.
wanted to be a Marine. I'm just one of them. I mean, I'm a crayon eating jawhead at heart, I guess, because the Army was more than willing to take me, no tattoo remover, and they would pay me a bonus. I chose tattoo removal and no bonus, no money to go be a Marine.
All because you saw that man in
I
uniform when
guess.
you
I
were a
don't know.
kid.
There was just
That's
something about, if you're going to go do, I just like, to me, that was the epicenter of elite and like the hardest way to possibly go.
I can agree with that because at some point I looked at that same uniform that you're talking about and I was like, man, that thing it really does look good. You guys have the best dress uniform in this the military period. You're not going to convince me otherwise, but I see that is. I think that's the Marines' biggest recruiting tactic is the uniform, right? Like everybody knows that. So I'm not surprised that it got you when you were little and then you latched onto that and kept pursuing it. So, what was that like for you going through the tattoo removal, finally getting to Paris Island, proving everybody wrong? How did you feel about that?
I felt like it was just a start, which is kind of an overspotty thing in my entire life. It's always just a start. You're always starting to push the envelope. I was starting to get, I felt like I was where I was supposed to be. So for one of the first times in my life, I was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I felt like I was at the right place.
I mean, I hear that a lot also, right? Like, it's weird, man, because I didn't feel that way. I did think basic training was easy. And then, getting to my unit basically just a couple of weeks after they had come home from the invasion, my life as a private was hell and I hated it. I was miserable. And, hindsight's 2020, all the work I've done on myself, realizing I felt like I was being bullied all over again by people that I was supposed to trust, and then also there's some kind of element of like, hey, these guys have been to war. They're preparing me to go to war because I already had orders at that point, right? Like I show up to my duty station and I know I'm going on a deployment. It's weird, that dynamic, but what did you learn at Paris Island about yourself? Did you really have to dig deep to get through it? Or, did you find that it was maybe a little bit easier than you expected and you were like, okay, I do have what it takes?
I don't, so, I mean, I was on the heavier side of what like my weight should be. When I got to Paris Island, I learned, what was that?
Too much partying.
Oh, absolutely. You can't drink beer and do shots and eat fast food all the time and not go in overweight. Like, I went in, what did I go in at? I think I dropped like 60 some pounds at boot camp. Like, they started having to feed me at the end because the, the head drill instructor, was like, we can't have people are going to think we're starving you. Like, so it was interesting. It was hard. I'll tell you what. When that shit hits the fan, if anybody that's ever been to Paris Island, I don't know, probably. I feel like I was the last. I think this is this thing that you probably hear a lot. Is everybody feels like they're the last of what the Marine Corps is like originally was, because it continues to change. I think it continues to get soft. But when shit hit the fan, well, on day one, like I was standing there on that yellow line wondering, like, what the fuck did I just do with my life? Like this is crazy. This is insanity that is happening right here. No holds bar, and it's like you question, do you have it? And you know what? I had a great bunkmate at Paris Island. It ended up being my bunkmate at School of Infantry as well, and it's interesting because we dropped. I mean, we started with a class of like 50 some people and graduated just over 30. And these dudes were killers. Like, I was like, is this shit for real? Like, they literally, like, I felt like you had to want it. Like, if you didn't want it, they were going to find out how to get you out of there. Like, you were not going to be in their Marine Corps. And I don't know how it is anymore, but I just don't.
I think I agree. I agree with what you're saying. I don't actually hear it a lot. A lot of people either won't talk about it or it's not something that comes up. But particularly in '07, right, as the surge comes, I know for a fact I had buddies on the trail as drill instructors when the surge was instituted, and basic training really did change, at least for the Army. So I imagine it was probably the same, military wide with the Marine Corps and even the Navy and the Air Force. They did. It just changed completely. I mean, we would get dudes who couldn't pass push-ups on a PT test at their first duty station for basic training. And it's like, you used to wash out of basic training if you couldn't pass the PT test, the last one anyway, right? And if you didn't pass it the whole time, you're creating extra work for yourself in remedial PT, because they're going to make sure that you pass that. And talking to my buddies out on the trail, they're like, no, dude, like it's your job to fix that deficiency. Like the Army says, we just have to get them through. And I'm like, that's fucking trash, dude. That is so
See,
not good.
I think that's kind of in that time period, my experience was different. So being at Paris Island in 2007, you started having these guys as drill instructors that were coming, that had a tour or two tours, and they were looking at it as it's their duty. Like I remember our first sergeant for our group at Paris, he was a recon guy, and he would make every infantry guy stand up every time we would have a whole, when they would get like the 4 different battalions and stuff together, and he'd be like, these are the guys right here. All you other guys are pussies. These are the guys that are going to go do this. This is why this shit's so hard. Because you started to have this crowd of guys that were becoming drill instructors that had been in combat recently and had lost people. And I think in the Marine Corps, there was this shift of like, it's their job. If you're going to go to the infantry, I remember they used to ask that shit all the time. And there was only a handful of us in my group. I think it was about 5 of us that were going to the infantry, and they just ragged on us. And like, they're like, you're going, like, it's not a question. And people's lives are going to depend on the fact if we can get you ready. And I think that was some of the stuff that made it insane.
That makes somewhat sense to me. The Marine Corps is a smaller organization than the Army, and typically the Marine Corps tends to follow some of the policies of the Army, right? So I very much had drill sergeants who had been to Afghanistan when I went to basic training in '03. I think halfway through our OSA, we ended up with one that had just come back from Iraq or whatever, right? And so, yeah, I remember it being like that too. Like, these are the dudes. I know what you're about to go do, and I'm going to prepare you to the best of my ability. However, by the time 2007 rolls around in the Army, we're a much bigger organization. They need a lot more numbers. They're just pushing, really unqualified people who should have never been allowed in the Army through. And so that's awesome, man. So,
and I think some of that was getting ready to happen in the Marine Corps in 2007, because that's what they would talk about. Is they'd be like,
so you were hearing the whispers.
Yeah, like the drill instructors would be like, we're not going to let this shit happen. Like, it's just not, like, it don't matter what they want, because we're not, like, you could tell, like, there was friction there, and these guys didn't care. Because, I mean, it's kind of the Marine Corps mentality. It's like, okay, you're going to say this or whatever. And it's like, we're going to do what actually has to happen, and you can look the other way. Like, that's just kind of how it is.
I wish the Army would have taken a similar approach.
But I think, like you said, it's 2 different machines. One a lot bigger, one a lot smaller. You can start to control some of this stuff. That's why they were getting nervous about the numbers. Like, we had dropped a lot of guys. And I remember they're like, we can't drop anybody else. Like, they're going to start investigations, all of this stuff. But the whole time through was, we're not letting anybody into the Marine Corps that cannot just be a Marine. Like, it's just not happening.
Yeah, and you and I agree with that, right? Like, because we know we've been there, And so you get done with Paris Island and you're a Marine. You get through the crucible, get your globe and anchor. How do you feel? You feel pretty good about yourself?
I felt amazing. I felt receiving my globe and my Eagle globe and anchor was, one of the proudest days of my life. I had just done something very, very few people will ever even think about doing, let alone have the balls to go do. I had a staff sergeant gave it to me that literally rode my ass from day one till the last day. Actually called me Fat Bomb. Like that was my nickname at Paris Island, was Fat Bomb. And he would come running in there every day. Where is Fat Bomb? We got to get together. We got a meeting. And like, but he just did what needed to happen to turn me into the Marine, because he would do all that, but he'd always tell me, you have more heart and more desire than anybody I've ever met to do this. So, like,
So I bet that was a really cool feeling when he presented you with your EGA.
Yeah, no, it was, because it was like he was the one. He had such an impact on getting me through Paris Island, and a huge impact on the hell that it was on me, because he just latched onto me. Like something clicked in his head that I was going to be his guy, that he was just going to ride to death. And I went for that ride, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah, I have a kind of a similar story. We had a drill sergeant who had, for the first half of like basic training for me, he was being a drill sergeant with another platoon. I think somebody had a baby or something. I don't know what, like we're not privy to that, but I knew he was coming back, right, to the platoon, and he had a reputation. And drill sergeant Dodge, I'll never forget him, but he, for whatever reason, comes back to the platoon, and I'm just one of those guys. I'm just going to put my head down and do what I have to do and try not to be noticed. And that didn't work, because I got the big old BCGs on. I'm the only one in my platoon with the BCGs on. And here comes Drill Sergeant Dodge. And it's funny because Drill Sergeant Dodge is like maybe 5'3" and I'm 6'3", right? So there's like a foot difference. And this dude's like in my face, latched onto me, picking on me, riding my ass, right? But similar story, we get done with our 12-mile road march field problem, get our cross rifles on Honor Hill. And it was the most significant feeling I'd ever felt at that point when Drill Sergeant Dodge puts my cross rifles on my chest. You know what I'm saying? And I absolutely relate to what you're saying, because I don't know, for somebody to believe in you, right, and then ride your ass that hard, and you don't really understand it, but then you get to the end of it, right, and then they're giving you something that you want so bad, and it just means more, I think.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So what happens? You get done with Paris Island, and now where are you going? First of all, I guess, how did you decide on infantry? Was that chosen for you through the Marine Corps, or you just knew, I'm going to go be a grunt, that's it?
Yeah, like that was it. Like there was no other choices. I wanted to go infantry into special forces, and that kind of like what that, through recon into MARSOC and stuff in the Marine Corps. So I went in and I said, what do I need to score on this ASVAB in order to be able to do this as my trajectory? And I went in, scored what I needed to score. And then they were like, well, you should go do all this other stuff. Like you have the option. I said, no, like, I'm going to go into infantry, and this is going to be my trade. They thought I was crazy anyhow. Like for one, I got
because you go through this tattoo removal.
Yeah, and then here I am, like I'm going to be a grunt, and they're like, "That? Why would you want to go do that?" And I'm like, "Because that's what I want to do. Like if I'm going to go be a Marine, why would I go drive a truck? Nothing against the people that drive the trucks, but like." Why?
It's just not who you are.
Yeah,
that's
like I want to go, and I want to go be in the misery, and I want to be able to say, I am one of the baddest dudes here.
And you did it.
Yeah. And
so you go from Paris Island.
Head.
Yeah, right. Yeah. They're not going to accept anything less, from you. So you go from Paris Island to Camp Lejeune, correct?
Oh, School of Infantry, which is Camp Geiger. Yeah, Camp Geiger. Here in North Carolina, it's only about 20 minutes from Camp Lejeune. But so you go into School of Infantry and spend 12 weeks there after boot camp.
Was that fun?
No, absolutely not. I mean, does anybody want to hang out with a bunch of sergeants and corporals that have like 3 or 4 combat deployments, and they're teaching you to go to your unit? Like.
Yeah, I figured that was going to be the answer.
Fun. How did you? I mean, that wasn't even. I say, yeah, it was fun, but it was misery. It was insane. It was insanity. Like you go to School of Infantry, and how it was back then was, like I said, you have these corporals and these sergeants that just re-enlisted. Now Like they spent their first 4 years of their career deployed to Iraq or Afghanistan, decided they're re-enlisting, they're picking up corporal sergeant, and they're becoming a School of Infantry instructor, and they're like 22, 23 years old, hot off a few deployments, in charge
With
of like
power, with
training
power.
30
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can imagine. So how did you like it when you got to Camp Lejeune? Where I mean, you go through basic training. I don't know how long your basic training is.
3 months.
3 months of basic training and then 12 weeks of School of Infantry. That's actually more than we get in OSIT with the Army. It's 16 weeks, or was when I went through all the way through 16 weeks. So 4 months total. And then you go straight to your first unit. So you're getting to your first unit. You've got a little taste because the School of Infantry is showing you like, hey, these are deployed, sergeants and corporals. You guys do 6-month deployments?
7.
7 months. Okay. Yeah. Cause it gets confusing. Like I talk about my 4 deployments equaling like almost 5 years of combat time. And then you guys' 4 deployments is only like a year and a half, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or 2 years. Yeah. So you get to Camp Lejeune. Did you know you're deploying at this point? Like you had to have known.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
we knew where we were
2007.
going in the order, like you said, like you show up in the order, like you're deploying, especially because when we showed up to our unit, they had just come back from a mute, so we knew we were going to Iraq or Afghanistan. Like it wasn't going. There was no whatevering. So, but we
And
left.
so what does training look like for you when you get there? Because I imagine how long are you at your unit before you deploy?
So I mean, it's 6-7 months workup, 7-month deployment. Like that's the cycle in the Marine Corps. So you're here. Like they always say, like for 7 months, all they're trying to do is keep you out of jail, alive, just long enough to deploy again. Like that's all. That's like their whole job. We spend a lot of time in the field.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and particularly in your case, that's probably good because your deployment to Iraq way out west, we'll just leave it at that, was not great, was it?
I mean, so as deployments go, there was a lot that were a lot worse, and probably a lot that were a lot better. That's how I always like to put it, because I think like when we talk about everybody's story, like that's just what it should be. Like you should
Yeah,
be.
your story. Yeah, absolutely.
Somebody like I don't have nearly the amount of combat that you've ever seen. I don't like it's that's just what it is. Like what I signed up for and what it ended up being are two different things. Like we sat out at a base and dealt with a bunch of bullshit for 7 months and came back.
And that was your deployment.
Yeah,
right?
like that was it. Like that's the so yeah, I would say, I know people had a lot better deployments. I know people that, never left the wire. So that's a lot better deployment. And we all know people that have died, like lost their life. And I think too often we try to rationalize our deployments and all like what the experiences were into who we are. And that's some of the case, but it's not all of the case.
Yeah, you got to eventually let go of that and understand that that's not who you are. It's just a part of what you've done or an experience that you've had, or, maybe it was your identity. But, for me, for a long time, right? Being deployed every other year for 12, 17, 12, 9, right? That very much became comfortable for me. Like I wanted that. That was an easier life for me because the rules are pretty cut and dry when you're over there, right? And the rules are very garbled and gray area when you're in civilian life, right? Or just back in the rear in general. And so, I love that you're speaking to stop rationalizing your experience, or my favorite, don't compare your experience to others. Just see your experience for what it was and try and learn lessons from it, right? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because how I would have wanted my experience to be would have been, and so this is like just open, honest conversation that we're having here is like going in, deploying to Iraq as a Marine Corps infantry guy. You just plan that all it's going to be is you're just going to be gunfighting all the time, 24/7. Like and that wasn't my experience at all. We were transitioning this stuff over to the Iraqi police. We were out in the middle of nowhere by ourselves. And that just wasn't the environment we were in. And it took me a long time to have to deal with that, to even be able to have this conversation, because that's not the experience that I signed up for or wanted, but that's the experience I had. And I know some people look at me like I'm crazy, because they're like, well, that's fine, like that's the better, you had the better experience. But we all sign up for different things, and what ends up happening is what happens, and that is part of our story that we just have to understand. And that's why I say, like, just let your story be your story. Too much when we get veterans around, it becomes this big pissing competition on this and that, and it ruins the camaraderie that we really all have.
I agree 100%, man. My experiences are mine and your experiences are yours, but there's no reason we can't come together, and we don't have to get into a dick measuring contest with whose deployments were worse or this, that, and the other, because at the end of the day, you and I signed up to do a job. We trained to do that job, and we go to do that job, right? Your mission dictated that you do something completely different than what you had been training to do or what you had expected to do. Several times throughout my deployments, it was really fucking boring. Dude, playing QRF for the entire country of Iraq after the sun goes down and never shooting a fucking round is really fucking boring, particularly when that's your third deployment and you have been doing your job largely for the other two, right? And then you go to another deployment where it's so bad and you're back in the shit that it overshadows the other three, right? So my experiences are my experiences. They're not to be compared to. They're not to be, ogled at, or just they just are what they are. I went and did my job, what the mission dictated at the time, and it sounds like that's exactly what you did, and you made peace with that. And that's like the whole point, right? Is like, I did my job to the best of my ability within the parameters of the mission, and there's nothing else to say about that. It doesn't make you less of a Marine. It doesn't, anything, right? And so you go through that deployment, living a pretty scarce life out there by yourself, a lonely life, and you come back and you're in workup to go to Afghanistan. And I assume you're probably chomping at the bit to go to Afghanistan, because Afghanistan's hot at this time, right?
Yeah, we were we were fired up. Yeah, I was ready.
And then you get hurt.
Yeah, that was
so good. Let's hear the story. How did you get hurt?
Yeah, so we were out running night ops in what is considered to be a swamp. MVGs out running through there, running a range in the middle of the night, and stepped in a hole, and that was it. It was a done deal. Myself and two other guys, same night, all blew their knees out, and that was it. In just one training revolution on our Afghanistan workup.
You just destroyed your knee, and your career is now over.
Yeah, well, I did. So, being the dude that I am, is I straight leg humped it back 13 miles the next day. My leg completely swelled up. They had to cut my camis off of it to see exactly what was going on with it, because I wasn't going to ride back when everybody else was. Like, I was like, if I just won't bend my knee. Like, that's just what it was. So, like, that was always a strength of mine. I'm a strong guy. When it came, like, I am the world's worst runner, but you can put 200 pounds on my back and I will hard anywhere you want it hard. Like, so if we're making a foot movement, I just made the foot movement, hobbling my way there the whole way. And when I got there, the doctor, he was like, "You're crazy. Like, this is insanity. Like, you lost your mind. Why did you walk back?" I was like, "Because I wasn't going to ride in that thing. Like, I'm not taking, like," I was like, "I am going to go do this. And if they got to pick me up off the road, they got to pick me up off the road." And
train like you fight, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna have a truck to ride on in combat. Like, I need to walk this off, right?
Yeah. So, and it ended up, I messed my IT band and all this stuff, whatever it was. And I kept trying, I kept pushing. It started to become down at my sergeant. like he just sat me down and was like, "This isn't in the cards. Like this is a safety issue." My knees started giving out, so like we'd be run like I would just fall down. Like it started to become something where it was a safety hazard for everybody else. And I remember my first sergeant was at the doctor's office chewing this doctor out. He's like, "We're deploying in 3 months. That dude's coming with us. I don't care what you say. You figure out how he's deploying." It was a whole deal. And like I kept trying to whatever. And finally, they just sat me down and was like, "Here's the deal. It's not in the cards." And the Marine Corps wasn't in the cards at that point in time because I didn't want to just sit at a desk. And like that was my options. Was like you can try to go transfer over and do something else where you're at a desk all the time. And I just couldn't I couldn't be this.
You couldn't fathom doing
Well, I
that.
couldn't fathom being this washed up grunt. Like in my mind, it couldn't hack it. Like, and I'm going to stick around here. Like, that to me was like the Marine Corps was like they were done with me and that was it. And I had to watch everybody leave and go to Afghanistan and wait. And then I was there when they all came back. And I got out like 2 weeks after they came back.
And so how is this affecting you internally, mentally? You're no longer able, because just because our bodies give out, right? Like mine did too at 12 and a half years, and I struggled with this through my transition. You are much younger in your career, right? You were an E3. So you really have one deployment. Like you've got a whole career ahead of you, and now your knee is completely fucked and you can't be a Marine anymore. But in typical military fashion, of course, you hang around for a long time and you watch your brothers and sisters leave. And then, for you, especially because you're shorter deployments, you're watching your brothers and sisters come home from this deployment that you should have been on. How is that affecting you and how are you taking that?
That was hell. Like I think this is the stuff that's not talked about as much because it's not, I don't
It's
know.
not sexy. It's not the combat stories, but this is the real shit that affects us, man. Like this is where survivor's guilt comes from.
Yeah.
And all that other shit. And that's why I'm asking you these questions, man, because I think it's important to have these conversations and for people who have lived that, particularly like you, somebody so passionate about being an infantry guy, right? Somebody who had a plan laid out for themselves. Okay, I need to score this on the ASVAB. Well, first I need to remove this tattoo from my neck so I can get in the Marine Corps. I got to score this on the ASVAB so I can be a MARSOC Raider, right? And then I get to my unit and that's what I'm working towards. And because I step in a hole in a swamp, it's fucking over, right?
Yeah.
And nobody really understands what that mental toll is on someone, particularly when your brothers and sisters are deploying and coming back and deploying and coming back while you're just sitting here basically with no purpose, no mission, no nothing.
Yeah, you're in purgatory waiting for, you can't leave, you can't go. Like the survivor's guilt, see, that's something that it took me a lot of years to realize, like why I feel the way I feel. A lot of time, like you get, because people don't come back, and that's the hardest part. Like people didn't come back that, and you're like, would it have been different? Like this is the kind of stuff you process in your mind. It's like, would it have been different? I remember we would be getting the news like such and such or whoever, like Afghanistan was hot, so you'd be hearing this stuff. And then, like, I'm at my house and I'm like, this is bullshit. Like everything about it. And then you start to worry. And the survivors you get. So like I'm very like when I'm not around, you worry about everything. Because like that's what you start to get used to is you start to think is when I'm not around, this shit happens. So then you take that into your personal life. You have the survivor's guilt that that it should have been you. And then you have the fact that anytime your wife goes and does something, or anytime, say, your sister, whoever, every time that phone rings, you think it's bad news. You build all this up, and it all starts to become in our minds. And like, I think, like you said, like, this isn't the sexy stuff, but this is the reality of what
Yeah, this is the real
happens.
stuff.
And
I think even more than that, you start latching on to, like you said, like you're seeing it on the news, your phone's ringing, you're hearing it, via the unit or whatever, coming back from the rear D channels and all that. And maybe not even it should have been me, right, in that situation, but what difference could I have made? I know I could have made a difference, right? Particularly if it's somebody very close to you, somebody you would have been in the same squad or platoon with, somebody that you had a relationship with. I absolutely understand what you're saying. It's really like, I know if I would have been there, that dude would still be alive, right? Even though you don't know that, like you can't know
we
that,
tell
right? Because
ourselves these stories. Like, it's what happened. It's like we create these narratives where I don't know. So if you become a grunt in the Marine Corps, when we're at a couple different wars, like, you figure it's going to be shitty, and what's that survivor rate and stuff look like for yourself? So you looked at all this stuff head on. Like, you have an understanding of it, and then you're poured out of that environment and asked to sit on the sidelines. You never looked at it from that perspective. Like, you never meant, like, you had all this training, all this stuff, all the mindset around that, willing to go do that. And then you moved out of that, but that continues to happen without you. And it's all these people that you have built amazing relationships with, and their entire life changes as well when they go. So, like, it starts to create this fragmented in the relationship there, uh, just out of the fact, like, it's a different situation than what you ever really hear people talk about.
Yeah, and so this is all going on in your head, right? On top of the fact your career is over, right? You're watching brothers and sisters deploy, knowing you should be on that deployment. That's kicking around in your head, but I imagine you don't really have a plan either getting out, do you? Because you haven't had time to even like you're very new to the Marine Corps. I don't mean that disrespectfully, but like you're very early in your career, your first enlistment. I don't know how many years you signed up for, and it doesn't matter because you still had some time. Like your future was laid out for you going to Afghanistan. Nowhere in your future did it say I'm going to blow out my knee and not be a Marine anymore, right? Like that, yeah, is a real possibility. Usually, around the 10-year mark, I would say that's pretty common, particularly with the op tempo of the military at the time, I had 3 deployments by my 10-year mark, and my body was failing. But you're not thinking about that. And so now your whole world's been flipped upside down and then pile on this survivor's guilt and this what if, and this FOMO even, right? Like I hate using that word, but it really is because that you could be over there making some kind of difference. It doesn't matter whether you would have saved that life or not, but just your presence alone and your training could make the difference. So what are you thinking? It's time to get out. You don't have a choice. They just came home. You're dealing with all of this. Like where are you? Like are you starting to exhibit the self-destructive behaviors? Are you back to drinking and partying? Like what's going on in your life?
Well, I mean, I think the drinking and party, like, that's just kind of, that's part
That's
of it.
infantry
Yeah,
life.
that's
That's
just
infantry
infantry
life.
life. That's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down. Uh, but so I got married. My bunkmate at Paris Island in School of Infantry actually introduced me to my wife. Uh, he said they grew up together, and he said, I have the perfect girl for you. And who would have ever thought? We ended up getting married not long after I got back from Iraq. But I had told her, like, this was going to be all life. Like, if you want it, if you're all in on this, like, I'm going to be in the Marine Corps. You're going to have to be okay with the deployments, and like I'm not going to go do whatever. I'm going to continue to move through the infantry into wherever I can go because that's what I want to do. She's 100% on board. And so I got her as well. Like, here we are. So she was originally from Michigan. So we ended up moving to Michigan. She wanted to go back by where her family was at. And I had no plans on going back to Ohio. Like, if anything, I figured I'd go farther south. Like, so
I mean,
like,
let's be honest. So Ohio and Michigan are close enough together; they might as well be the same.
yeah. I mean, so but I
It's
ended
coming
up
from an
farther,
Indiana boy, so
but I ended up farther north. It's like I'm like I didn't even plan on going back to Ohio. Here I end up in Michigan, like because like what you said, I didn't have any plan. Like here I am. It's done.
and so I want to kind of pause and interrupt you for a minute because I think this is very important. So when you met your wife, you meet her through your bunkmate at basic training, and they have a relationship, right? So she already understands a little bit or is familiar with some military life or
Her
just had
dad
been
was a retired sergeant major from the Army.
Okay, so she's definitely well familiar with the military life, and I think it's important to put out there. I did not do this, and it cost me 2 marriages while I was in the Army, and that's pretty common, right? Like most people have a couple of marriages, at least in the infantry world, and I think it's important to talk about like so you were upfront with your wife from the get go. You told her like, hey, like you're cool, I'm cool, I like you like me, but like this is my life. This is what path I'm on, and I am not willing to change that. And she still was by your side. And so I imagine she is probably at this point in your life, as you're going through this adversity with getting out and your career being derailed overnight, basically, do you find that you can lean on her for the support that you need, and she kind of maybe helps keep you from falling further down that transition hole?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, we're guys. We're infantrymen. Like, show no weakness. We're the baddest dudes in every room we step in. You think like you're going to lean like there's a lot of growth that's happened. We've now been married. We're coming up on 16 years of marriage, and I would go about it completely different than what I go about it now.
Congratulations, by the way, brother. That's
Thank you.
impressive.
It's not easy, but like I've learned, like now I would lean on her a little more than I did back then.
And I'm so glad that you point that out because that is very much the Army I was raised in. Show no weakness. You are the baddest dude in the room. You're not allowed to feel anything. And if you do feel something, it needs to be off in a corner by yourself for 2 seconds, and then you need to snap back into it. And that's part of what this show is about, is crushing those false narratives, because that is so unhealthy for us as human beings, particularly as combat veterans. To me, it's one of the most detrimental things you can do to yourself is to view asking for support or help or admitting that you're having a hard time or struggling to someone else as weakness. Because knowing what I know now and the work I've done on myself, I think you might agree with this. It's actually the strongest thing you can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it is because we already carry a lot around, and all you're doing is just adding more to it. That's why I think we have a lot of the problems that we have in the veteran community, because we just carry that shit around.
Yeah, because no one's willing to walk up to you on any given day while you're in and say, hey, Nussbaum, man, like, dude, I'm fucking struggling, dude. Like, I can't make heads or tails of this, right? Like, you don't do that while you're in because you're afraid, I think, and because it's been beaten into you that you're not allowed to feel that way, right? Like, nobody encourages you to talk about the things that are eating you alive from the inside. Would you agree with that?
100%. I mean, my nickname in the Marine Corps was Juice. I was not like it.
It's just you're expected to be on all the time, I think, is really
not
what
just
it is,
on.
right? Like,
you're expected to be, when we talk, like, you're just the baddest dude everywhere you go. Like, you're expected to be that. Even I'm sure it's the same way in the Army as it is in the Marine Corps when you're in the infantry. You're expected to be that when you're around other people that are in that same branch, if they're not, if especially if they don't fall into that category. So if you're an infantry guy and you're around other Marines that aren't
You set
infantry,
the
you're
standard. Yeah.
expected to be the fucking standard of what this is, and to hold rank and fire and just be the elite of the elite. And like that.
It's interesting, Ron, because on this show we say this like almost every other episode. It seems like, particularly when I talk to other infantry guys, but in the Army, and I'm sure in the Marine Corps, it's very similar. The infantry is like its own army inside of the Army. It's a very, very different place. And I would love to get a guest on here that is a soft skill MOS guest that did work with infantry soldiers, particularly from the Army, so that they can kind of speak to that, because it's just it's not a malicious thing. It's just the way it is, right? Like, is it the same in the Marine Corps?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, but it's the same reason why an Army infantry guy and a Marine Corps infantry guy can meet anywhere in the word at any point in time and be on the same page.
Right.
Like, that's just
Yeah,
kind of,
I agree
it's
with
a
that.
different word in the branches, but like that word is its own. Like, it's just what it is.
Yeah, I love it, man. It's so fun to get to talk to other infantry guys and just see that I wasn't seeing it in a different context. I was seeing it for what it actually was. Because I think sometimes, we don't always take that step back to try and see other people's perspectives, but just hearing other infantry guys talk about the infantry the same way I felt about it is enough for me to like be like, okay, I wasn't all way off base. So you're out. You're in Michigan. It's cold as fuck. I imagine that's not doing you any favors for your knees. How are you handling the transition? Are you still pretty fucked up in the head and still trying to muddle your way through it, or at what point did you really like start to realize you had to start your healing journey, if you will?
Well, I was lost. Like, that's how we all are. Whether you plan on doing 4 years and getting out, or you plan on doing 20 and you get out after 25, or your career's cut short, when we get out, we're lost because it's a completely different word out there. Like, it's just the word is, it's just a completely different word. And we just end up lost. Like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like, I kind of hopped around, did a couple of different things, and I was trying to figure out who was I.
Yeah, that's the big one, right?
But that's
So
hard when all we're doing is drinking. Like,
well, and now you're not just drinking with your battle buddies, to blow off steam at the end of a training cycle or a deployment. You're drinking to self-medicate and escape all of those thoughts and that pain, man, because it really is. It's not just a mental pain, it's a physical pain. You feel that pain. And for me, very much similar to you, I quit drinking while I was still kind of in that limbo phase of the med board. But for me, it was the only comfort I found was at the bottom of a bottle, and there was a lot of empty bottles. You know what I'm saying? And I was killing myself. I was literally killing myself. When my own father looked at me and was like, "Dude, you're killing yourself. Please stop drinking." And I didn't. I knew I had a problem, and so you're using alcohol in a different aspect now, right? Like, I think it's a lot easier. I'm not saying it's good, because alcohol is still poison, but when you're doing it with your Marine buddies, after work or after a training event or after a deployment, to blow off steam, kind of the joke, going on 8-mile runs on Monday morning, hungover, everybody smelling liquor coming out of their pores, right? Like, that's very, very commonplace in any infantry unit I've ever been in. I'm sure for you as well, and every other infantry guy on the planet. And really, I think just military wide, that's a pretty common thing. Probably definitely more prevalent in the infantry, ranks, but you're doing that while you're out. You're drinking a bunch. You're not getting clarity. You're bouncing around. I imagine part of why I started this is because eventually I would like this to be a pathway that is required for veterans to go through, because I feel like we fall short on our transition out process from the military in general, right? Back when I got out, it was called ACAP. It was literally go write a resume, use your GI Bill, get a degree, find a good job, see you later, right? And that's largely the experience of just about everybody I've had on this show, if not everybody I've had on this show. I have no reason to believe that your out processing was any different. And so we're very lost. And so now you're in a strange place with only the woman that you love, right? You have no family up there. You have no friends up there. You
Well,
just lost.
I did have my bunkmate from from School of Infantry. He lived 45 minutes from us.
Okay. So you do have at least one person, but you're also not in a place where you're still looking at reaching out for help or to talk about how you're feeling as weakness, right? So you're probably not reaching out to your buddy.
Well, and those
And
relationships are different. I think that's
much
something we
different.
don't talk about. Is like
Well, let's talk about that then, because you're right, they are very different, and I'm interested to hear your perspective on this because I have my own as well.
well, I think it's a lot of relationships when you're in are like you get stuck in this, not stuck. So you're put in a group of people and they become the best friends you've ever had in your entire life because you've been to hell and back with them. And it's really hard to continue those relationships after the military, even when you're close. Like my expectations for my relationship with the guy that introduced me to my wife were completely different than what happened because you're no longer in an environment where people just have to be each other. Like when people get out and they can make different decisions and they do different things, it's a completely different dynamic. And I think that's why we see a lot of struggles with relationships, even with people that were really close. I watched a couple of people that can do this really, really well. But for the most part, we're very dysfunctional as a group of individuals when we get out for how close we were, how much of family we were. That just starts to kind of fall away because everybody has their own life they start to live.
I 100% agree with that. And the best example I can give is, after all the work I've done on myself, started and continuing on my healing journey and really recognizing all of the faults and the limiting beliefs and, the false narratives I was telling myself. I find it really hard, and I'm an active participant in as many veteran charity organization retreats that I can go to. I've been to 3 total thus far, constantly trying to go on more because I do think it's important to get the tools and to see what these wonderful organizations are out there doing to help our veteran community, and take notes and see how I can do my show better and help veterans also. But I find it really hard to be in that environment, right? Like I can still talk infantry with the best of them, but anymore it's really uncomfortable for me because it's such a part of my past that I know was not really serving me in any way, shape, or form other than to make it through combat. And so, I enjoy doing these one-on-ones, but if you put me in a group of 25 infantry guys right now from any, Marine Corps, Army, it doesn't matter, I'm going to have a little uncomfortable feeling. Not that I can't keep up or hang with the jokes and the talking and how we are. It's just because it's not who I am anymore, right? It's a part of my past.
Well, that's where when I talk about your story is your reason why, not your reason why not. But that's what we run into when we get when we get in these groups. It's not about what for amazing things we could do to other. A lot of times it's about what has been done, what has happened, what is either the systems against me or there's all kinds of narratives that we paint, and it is uncomfortable. I've been involved in multiple veteran things. It's so uncomfortable that I have come back and told my wife, like, I do not understand why I am not comfortable or why I do not feel like I fit in with people that I should fit in with. Like,
I think there's something to that. And I think really what it comes down to is the military, particularly the infantry, especially the infantry, is a very fixed mindset place. And in order for us to heal and grow as people, once we get out and move past all of that, we have to adopt a growth mindset. and the two don't work well together, right? You can't put a group of people who have a growth mindset in a room with a group of people who have a fixed mindset. And those people with that growth mindset are going to feel so out of place and so uncomfortable because they now have the ability to see the world from multiple different perspectives, not just that fixed perspective that we were taught and indoctrinated into from the military. Does that sound accurate to
Yeah,
you?
no, I agree with that. Like that's kind of where some of the divisions happen within the veteran community and some of the stuff that's broken.
Yeah, and to prove my point, like I'm building my stuff, my audience on LinkedIn. It's for me, it just seemed like a more palatable social media platform. However, I've realized, most of the audience that I want to get this in front of lives on Facebook. That's how you and I connected, and you agreed to do this show. Super grateful for that, by the way. Thank you for being a stand-up guy about it, because I was very apprehensive to put myself on Facebook with what I'm doing because I just see these groups, these veteran groups on Facebook, and they wallow in self-pity, and it's the system, and they take no ownership for any of it, right? Like they continue to tell themselves a story, and that story becomes their reality. And I think largely that's why I started this show, is to show you that you have to change yourself. And then once you've changed yourself, there is a path back to purpose that you can follow and feel great about yourself and help others and do good in the world, and just not be in these toxic cesspools of groups on Facebook where everybody's just pity me, pity me. I hate that shit, man. And I'm sorry if that offends the audience or anybody that's a loyal listener or whatever, but I promised everybody here I was going to be my authentic self, and that's truly how I feel about it, because it is not doing any favors for our community whatsoever. It's harming the community, and I'm here to change that. I think you're here to change that, right?
Yeah, no, I agree 100% with that. And it's going to piss a lot of people off. And that's fine in my mind because I think that's something we have to change. Like, we're, we're who we are. Like, what we've done is amazing. It should be the catalyst to the rest of your life. It shouldn't be the
The end
downfall.
of your life.
Yeah, it
Yeah, the end
shouldn't
of your
be the
life.
end. If we started looking at this as there is a reason why, and like that's the hard thing to overcome because I could have easily just continued down the road of, oh, poor me and my knee over here and my life's ruined. I couldn't wallow in that because what they used to say all the time, no matter what you do at after you're a Marine, the newspaper will always say United States Marine and then whatever that was. And what did I want that story to be? Eventually I realized I didn't want that story to be this lost dude that was just out here cruising through life. Like there had to be more to it. The Marine Corps meant a lot to me, but the Marine Corps wasn't necessarily who I am. I can take the good things, the good principles, the stuff that is great about the Marine Corps and myself, and I can let that be a catalyst for the rest of my life. And that's what I believe everybody should do. And it's a hard bridge. It's a hard bridge to get over for a lot of us.
Yeah, but let me tell you, man, when you cross that bridge, the reward that's waiting for you on the other side is one of the most amazing things I've ever experienced in my life. And I would think that you probably agree with that for sure.
There's nothing like it. It starts to lead to so much clarity, and you start to realize things that you're capable of a lot more than most people that are walking this earth. And
I think that's
that's just the
true. I
bottom
think that's
line.
true of every human, right? If we would get out of our own ways, look inside, do some deep work while looking in the mirror, you'll realize really quick that you can't fathom the amount of shit you're capable of accomplishing in your life. And I couldn't have said it better. So talk to us about, you're in Michigan, you're trying a bunch of different things. How do you end up in construction, and how does it turn into, basically your empire, man? Because this is the fascinating part to me. Like, and I know you're a humble guy, and I know we talked offline, and I told you I couldn't wait to have this conversation with you, because to me, you are a very accomplished businessman. What you've been able to accomplish is phenomenal. And I do want to spend quite a bit of time on this, because obviously, I believe the path back to purpose is entrepreneurship. You clearly agreed, because you wanted to come on the show, because you see my vision and my mission, and where I'm headed. And so talk to us about getting to Michigan, not really having anybody, being in your own way, and then getting into construction, leading up to the founding of BuilderComs.
Yeah, so I'm a big component for veterans going into construction, and this is why. Is I was looking for what I was going to do. There was this ad on Craigslist for a foreman in training role, and I went and apply because I had never had any construction experience. I had no thought of why I would want to go do that, but something drawed me to it. And finally, one day I was looking in the mirror and I was like, damn it, Ron, if you want to go work in construction, you were a United States Marine. You can go work in construction. Like, go be a foreman. So I applied for the job. I ended up getting it because the guy was an Army guy, loved Marines. Everybody else he was hiring had construction management degrees. Here's Ron, managed to get a high school diploma and a tour to Iraq, and I'm on the team.
Yeah. That's awesome, right?
Yeah, but
a deployment will get you far. Yeah, it's a good resume builder.
Will. It'll open up doors that I think people don't. I think people don't utilize it in the way they could to open up doors. Because, like I said, the people utilize it in a negative way instead of utilizing it in a positive way, and it will.
Well, and I want to talk about this for a minute, because I think this is important. You're an advocate for veterans getting into construction. And when I was getting out at 12 and a half, 13 years, for me, my body was too broken. I knew manual labor wasn't an option for me, but you're also presenting this as like, you are applying to be a foreman, which essentially manages people, right? You're just being a leader. And so talk about those options that are out there for veterans, because I think oftentimes people, I know I did, I shied away from construction, steel work, stuff like that, because I felt like, getting out as an E6 with 13 years in the Army, first of all, I didn't really want to start at the bottom all over again. And I know, going into the corporate world, obviously you're going to have to start from the bottom, but that's not always the case. And I think in the trade skills, particularly, that's not always the case, because part of what we talk about at length on this show is the high leverage skills that you develop in the military: leadership, discipline, resilience, problem solving, adaptability. We can go on and on and on. And frankly, we do. And I'm sure people are sick of hearing this, but it's a testament to how all of those are highly sought after, particularly in the trades, right? Mm-hmm. So can you talk to us a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I went the road of doing some hard work, but that's not all of what construction is. So, I mean, I've done everything from running Jackhammer to running the company, everything in between. But besides my experience, what I have found is there is not a skill set out there that doesn't apply to construction and construction businesses. Like, even if you want to do accounting, you can do accounting for a construction company. And here's the thing, is that construction companies have a completely different culture, a completely different world than corporate America. I felt when I got into construction, like I was back home. Like, yeah, here we go. There's structure, there's discipline to this. This is just how you do it. Like, there's no gray areas for, like, there's some, but like there's protocols, like all of this stuff. I was like, this is perfect. And you can show up and kick ass and swear. And it's not necessarily frowned upon.
And you're probably going to go drinking with your buddies at the end of a hard day. Yeah, you're probably going to
hang out with your buddies, drink, and do all of that kind of stuff as well. And it's like, that's just that word. And that's why I think a lot of guys and girls that get out, you can look at careers in construction, the skilled trades, and you don't have to go be a field worker. there's all kinds of aspects of these of construction businesses that happen that the only thing everybody thinks of is the muddy guy down at the bottom. But that's not like, that's where people can start. Like, that's where I started, and that's not where I ended my career in construction, because we can eat people alive. I don't think that's what people don't understand is you can take your skill set you learn in the military and eat civilians alive at jobs.
Particularly in 2024.
Yes, and in construction. Like, you can literally just go in and dominate, show up and do what you're supposed to do, and you would just move up that career trajectory. If you want it, you can go get it. I wanted it. I wanted it more than anything, because I was like, all these punk ass college construction man, I'm going to run fucking circles around them. And that's what I did. I was like, I understood I needed to learn everything I could about construction in my mind, because I knew I had all the skills I could take everybody to school. I just didn't understand construction. And once I understood construction, I was able to dominate and become a foreman, a field supervisor, production manager, operations manager, run the company, do sales, salesman, you name it. I had the capacity to do it within the construction industry because I learned construction, and I had this other skill set no one else had. And that was, I knew how to get shit done.
Right. So you started as a foreman, correct?
Foreman and training.
That's the job you applied for. Foreman and training. And so explain to the audience I'm not familiar with what it is. So, if I'm not, probably the audience isn't
just
either, so.
A general laborer. A fancy way to say general labor. But within 6 months, I was a foreman, running my own crew, and because the trajectory is there.
Right. You just have to excel, right, at the, and I agree with you. It's really not hard to run circles around civilians once you've had any length of time in the military. I mean, even what you were like 3 total years.
Yeah.
Like basic training essentially is enough.
It's a complete, that changes the perspective for every, like that alone will get you. But then you do any more time, or you do a deployment, and you spend like that stuff compound.
Yeah. And so you're working your way up the ladder. Within 6 months, you're a foreman running your own crew. We're now, obviously you talked earlier, your parents were Amway, right? So you had entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial influences in your life. I was offered to do the Amway thing, right? MLM, right? Like people have success with it. I know I remember seeing Mary Kay all over the place. I remember when Scentsy candles was a thing. So you have these entrepreneurial influences growing up. So at what point on your journey in construction did you realize, okay, there's a problem, I know how to solve it, let me start BuilderComs?
So that's
obviously it was probably a much different journey but basically that's the gist of it, right?
Yeah.
Like work in construction, see a problem, solve a problem, build a company.
That was fast forward ahead, from showing up day one, fast forward ahead about 10 years of blood, sweat, and tears of entrepreneurship, which I think is a great thing for veterans as well. Like, find a company that you can go help build. I would just say make sure you cover your own ass, because sometimes if it's not on paperwork, it doesn't end up how you think it's going to end up. But it
sounds like you learned a painful lesson.
I learned a very painful lesson around that. Very.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
We'll talk about that in a minute. Life-changing lesson around that. But I saw a problem that I had, like I dealt with.
Which was what?
Communication problem. Actually, here's like, we're on here. We can talk. I getting my ass chewed about stuff that wasn't my fault or I had anything to do with consistently. Because if you're the top of the totem pole, you're the one getting your ass chewed.
Shit rolls downhill, man.
It roars up as well. So I really looked at like why. everything I could come up with, it was all communication problems. People weren't on the same page. I had customers talking to sales reps about stuff they needed to be talking to the foreman about, or I had customers talking to the receptionist about stuff they needed to be talking to my scheduler about. And I was like, this shit has to stop. How do we fix this? One night I was laying in bed, it hit me. I was like, if I just had software that worked as air traffic control and got the right people talking to the right people, it would just be amazing. And I decided to bring that software to market, and that software is now BuilderComs, and that's what I do.
So, I mean, great. You had an idea while you're laying in bed and then you execute on the idea, but there's a lot of steps between, having the idea laying in bed, solving your own problem, and what you're doing now running BuilderComs. And that's part of what this show is about, because I talk to veterans regularly, and those particularly getting out don't know that entrepreneurship is a way for them, a path forward for them. So I've been credited by several people in the DMs on LinkedIn, with opening a door and letting some of that light crack through. Right. Later this year, we're going to have a guest on who did a 1-hour call with me, and now she is crazy running wild with this master resiliency training idea that she had. And I'm so grateful to have been a part of that, just in a 1-hour phone call, to have inspired her so much to go and do some stuff. And so often I get like, okay, so this is an option, but I don't know where to start. Right. And you probably had no idea where to start, because you're talking about building a software and you're a construction guy. Right. And like me, I'm very interested in SaaS right now, because, SaaS is the new thing right now, particularly micro SaaSes that solve like individual tiny problems. So what year was this that you had this idea roughly?
So I would have had the idea in around 2019, right in there.
So this is like the breakout of SaaS, right? Software as a service, for those who don't know. Like, so in the last, I'd say 3 or 4 years, SaaS has really become like the it thing to be doing. There's a ton of money in it. If you solve a good enough problem and know how to market it, I mean, it really is life-changing money. But 2019 SaaS there's not a lot of information out there about SaaS, as I can imagine, right?
No.
And so tell the audience, where did you start? You're like, I just build this software to solve this problem. Take it from there. How do you start?
I started by putting together, I call it a haphazard at best PowerPoint presentation on what I thought the software should look like. And I start beating down doors of developers and paying to get me, like, to go get in there to have consulting with people that build software. But like you said, like, we're late 2019 headed into 2020. Like, these guys are flush with people that want to build software. Here I am, I'm just this construction guy with this little piece of software. And so I got like, you're not the right guy to do this. Like, just shelf this and go back to building buildings or whatever the fuck you do. So I was like, no.
Okay, so that's an important part to talk about right there, because you've got a lot of naysayers telling you you're not the right guy to do this, yet you don't abandon the project. And so this is a very valid point to be making to the audience, is like, first of all, if you're going to start something, fucking finish it. Like, do not let anybody dictate, within reason, right? Like, I'm sure you did some kind of market research. You're in the industry, so you know this is a viable, like, problem-solving software, right? So really, market research kind of is done for you just by default, because you're in the business, right? So people telling you you're not the right guy to do this, and as a Marine, I know that doesn't sit well with you. That just fuels you even more. You're like, okay, motherfucker, I'm going to show you. Just like you had the tattoo removed from your neck so that you can be a Marine.
There's a trend.
And so there is a trend, and it's important to call attention to this trend, because this is something that is lacking in our community, as you and I have discussed at length, before we started recording here. And so I do want to spend some time on this, because it is important. a lot of people coming at me telling me that these episodes need to be shorter and I should not have 2.5, 3 hour conversations with people. And that's a hard line in the sand for me. I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks about that. I'm going to continue to do it the way that I see others who inspire me doing it, right? And I'm going to do it my way because I see the value, and the overwhelming positive feedback I get far outweighs any of the naysayers, right? And so how did you deal with those naysayers? And am I right? Did you just use it as fuel to be like, look, I'm going to show you?
Yeah, it just didn't really matter. I just, no is not necessarily something I accept. It's just kind of, okay, whatever. This is what I'm trying to figure out. And yeah, you got to keep rocking and roll. I think that's something that veterans have that other people don't inherently have. Like, you just figure it out and you get through it. Like, people can say whatever they want. Like, you don't know. Like, who are you to tell me I'm not the right person? Like, doesn't matter.
That doesn't compute. Yeah, that doesn't compute. It's just like, hey, we're going on this mission to find this cache. You go out, you walk all night, you're fucking smoked. There's nothing there. It's a dry hole, right? Well, guess what? You're going to be doing this again in about 6 hours. So you might as well suck it up and go kick down the next door, right? And so that's really your approach.
Welcome to my entire time in Iraq.
Yeah. And so that's the approach you're taking with your idea for BuilderComs is you're going to just all these developers probably spending way too much money for these consults. Talk to us about when you did find somebody who saw your vision and was willing to, I don't know, partner with you or help you build this thing.
Yeah. So I ended up, the 10X incubator launched. And just a little background, like 10X is Grant Cardone down in Miami, the real estate guy, for anybody that doesn't know who he is, but he's the 10X guy. I read his book, the 10X Rule, in 2011 when I got out of the Marine Corps. And it's one of the things I latched onto because he's an intense individual. And
he's so intense.
What?
He's so intense. Yeah. His email list, I was on his list for a while, and man, I had to stop because he'll send 7 or 8 emails a day, every single day, 7 days
absolutely.
a week. He's relentless. He's relentless.
He wants you to either buy his stuff or opt out. Like, that's the option.
That's it. And I opted out.
So, but I read his book in 2011 and just connected with it. And it was like, I actually told my wife in 2011, one day I'm going to do a deal with Grant Cardone. I don't know what it is, what it looks like, but me and this dude just could dominate the word. So then I'm trying to figure out how to develop this software. They launched the 10X incubator looking for tech startups. I told my wife, this is it. This is the culmination of all of this. And I apply. And I end up getting accepted. So there's 26,000 people apply to be in the 10X incubator. I'm one of 100 companies that made it in there, and I'm one of a handful that have actually brought a company to market through the 10X incubator. Through that, I met Jared Yellen from Project 10K. He's my co-founder in this. He looked at me first time we met and said, Ron, you're the guy to do this. Let's do this. Let's go build this software. And that was the start of the journey to go do this.
So what was the 10X incubator like? Was that drinking from a fire hose, being around all these brilliant minds, these business minds? Is that a dream? It's almost like a wet dream, right?
Yeah. I got to go down and hang out in Miami a couple of different times and go to 10X and do all this stuff that, people spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get to go do and be involved with that stuff. And it was awesome. I mean, it was a checkbox moment for me because it was something that I felt, a decade earlier I was destined to do. And to me, it was it's just part of it. I don't get too excited about any of this stuff really because I just
because the journey's not over.
It's not
right?
over,
you're
but
still
it's
doing
I just
this.
kind of expect I expect us to win. I just expect that like the no's, the failures, all the bullshit that comes along with it. I just don't let that phase me because I expect to win. I expect to be that champion and I expect to get where I'm going. And that's something that like veterans should understand is like we should have that mindset because at one point in time, that's how we were. Like we expected to be that person. You can still be that just because you don't put your camis on or whatever anymore. Like you can still go be that person.
Man, that's so good. How did you deal with any of the internal limiting beliefs and the self-sabotage and self-doubt while you were kicking down these doors before you got accepted into the 10X incubator?
Well, I mean, I think we all deal with that stuff all the time. I think if you're not if you're not dealing with that stuff, like you're not pushing the boundaries on who you can possibly be. I deal with stuff all the time. I mean, I had a realization yesterday because a message went off on my phone, and I was like, I had this thought, and I was like, well, why do I always think everybody's just going to leave me? I was like this is a limit. Like this is something that's fundamentally wrong with me. I need to fix. So like we if you're not processing that stuff, you're not pushing the envelope on.
That's the best answer I've heard to that question on this show because I agree 100%. You are always going to be uncomfortable and dealing with those thoughts. I deal with them, right? And I'm very like forward facing, right? This is going on the internet in front of everybody, right? And that's something I struggle with still. Why do I struggle with it? I'm still asking myself that question and working on why I do that, right? And you're absolutely right. That is the healing journey per se, or the personal growth journey. It's constant. And I agree with you. If you're not feeling that way or dealing with imposter syndrome, self-doubt, limiting beliefs, and reframing those and constantly, making yourself better, then you're not trying hard enough. You're not pushing, like you said, that envelope.
Well, and we get through them, and it just kind of we don't ever really think about it because like all of a sudden one day it's fine. Like one day I can speak to, I have a podcast for the construction, and it was like doing this kind of stuff 2 years ago, zero appetite for it. Like was not interested. Now I've released 150 episodes of my own podcast, and like, and we're hearing you say that because that's how I used to be. And at some point in time, I just wasn't that way anymore. And I can't even really put a mark on it, but like you process it and you work your way through it, and then it's not even a speed bump in your journey once you're through it. But it seems like it's a giant wall when you're facing it head on.
And I think for me right now, just in doing this, there's only 4 out while we're recording this. And then every Wednesday yours isn't even going to come out till August right now because I just have so many in the pipe, which is good. That's a good problem to have, right? Like that's the way you want to do this. But for me, it's just, I get over it a little more each time I do another one of these with another veteran. And I think for me, particularly the amount of fun that I have doing this and how good I feel about what I'm doing outweighs any of those negative connotations with being forward facing or being all over the internet. And I think that's really what it is for me. So I relate to what you're saying. Like you put out 150 episodes and you can't even put your finger on when that went away. I'm at I think you're like episode number 18, right? And I think I'm getting to that point where it's like, I enjoy this so much that I don't care about the other feelings.
Well, that's what happens. Like why do we, I understand why, because like I'm a United States Marine. I expect to kick ass at everything. But like that's not reality when you start. Like when we showed up at boot camp, we sucked. When I showed up at School of Infantry, I sucked. When I got to the fleet, I sucked. Before I deployed to Iraq, I sucked. Like we have to give ourselves the grace of whatever that is there to understand we're going to suck for a little bit at whatever we want to do.
You're going to have to fail. I mean, it's coming. You're going to have those failures, and through those failures, you can only learn the lessons that unlock the next steps of your journey.
Yeah, which is what entrepreneurship is it's a lot of failing with a few wins and hopefully a huge success at the end of the day. Like it's a grind. It's why there's a lot of correspondence to the military because it's not easy. Not everybody can do it, and you have to be willing to suffer some.
Yeah. So talk to us about BuilderComs. What it's you've touted it as the air traffic control of construction. So give us just a little breakdown of what your software actually does. I know you mentioned it connects the right people with the right people. You know, it's a communication tool, but let's dive a little bit deeper into that. Like, give us the inner workings of how your software solved a problem in the construction industry so that we can understand like what it does and how it solved that problem.
Yeah, absolutely. So 30% of construction projects end in a dispute. It's a staggering number, but those are the facts. That's a recent poll as of like 3 weeks ago. That number
I had
came
no
out.
idea.
Now, what ends up happening in those disputes is nobody has any information on anything that happened. None. So what BuilderComs does is we get all the communication, all the documents, all the pictures, the videos, everything in one place. We start to be this data center of everything that's happening on that project. I think one of the best ways to put it is if Slack and Dropbox hooked up on a weekend and they popped out a baby, that would be BuilderComs for the construction industry. So that's what we do is we start to get the right people talking to the right people. It's a super simple thing. Like this is the most simplest software that has literally ever been built. That's what our customers tell us all the time is thank you for just building something that's simple and easy to use because that's all I wanted it to be. Like I just wanted to fix this problem and go after it and build the solution for that. So we just simply get the right people talking to the right people and then create a database of all that information. So it's no longer strung through emails or text messages or WhatsApp or my favorite, all the papers sitting on people's desks or the pictures on the phones. We get it all in one place and then we organize it per project. So you can go into a project, see all the communications that are happening, see the documents, the proposals, the change orders, go in and see all the pictures and updates. And we build out an app that customers can download that gives them access to their project as well.
And have you seen this actually drop those dispute numbers with the clients that you have using the software?
So I would say yes, being that that's a new number that came out is we're going to be doing some like research into that from a company perspective. I have personally seen it happen with guys that I've worked with where our very first customer, he's like, I'm a great communicator, but I'll tell you what, I work with high-end clients and they don't like to respond to my text messages or emails because they think I'm either work or a buddy that wants to go hang out. I need a better way to get in front of them because he's like, they're pissed off at me all the time because they're saying I'm not getting them the information. Hence the app. So now when he deals with a customer and he goes in there and he sends them a message, they get a push notification in the BuilderComs app. They know it has to do with their project. So he tells them, when you get a notification, I need to talk to you. It has to do with your project. And it completely changed the whole dynamic between him and his homeowners from like where they felt like he was never communicating and he felt like he was over communicating to now they're all on the same page because they know when something comes through on BuilderComs, it's not one of their buddies and it's not work. It's something that has to do with their project. So that right there would limit disputes by itself.
That's cool. And BuilderComs was built specifically only for residential construction,
that's all bread and butter because that's where I came from. There's commercial applications for it. We have people using it in the commercial world. We just don't have a strong push in there because it's not where I came from. But I have definitely been told by multiple people that there's just as much of a need for it in commercial construction as there is in residential, if not
So
more.
is that maybe a direction that you'll pursue for BuilderComs in the
Oh,
future? I
absolutely.
mean, it seems
Yeah,
logical, right?
absolutely.
As you
Yep,
scale.
absolutely. We're starting to push into that environment.
Man, what a cool business you've got. And something as simple as just communicate. I like how you put it. Slack and Dropbox had a baby. And it's funny because you can now connect Dropbox to Slack. I run my entire business out of Slack. I was apprehensive to pick up a tool like that until I started running into the same problems you were having, trying to communicate with people, finding email threads, right?
Yeah.
Slack. It all just lives in Slack. It's great. It's so nice. I go to whatever channel I need to get whatever information I need. I have my conversations channel to talk to my team, and that's really it. Like, you don't need anything else, and it's stupid simple. And I like that about how you're describing Builder Comms, because I think in this world, in this day and age, we have this tendency to try and pack stuff with so many features. And like a prime example I can give you is Notion, right? Like, Notion is a sweet tool, but it's just so much. Like, Notion it can consume your life, and so I've avoided using that. A couple people on my team like it, but they set things up for me so that I don't have to build anything in there. And I just like the simplicity of it. I just need it to do what I need it to do, and that's it. And it sounds like that's what you've built.
Well, yeah, you're one of the first people that ever told me they think Slack is simple and they like it. Most people don't, because it's encompassing to set up, and that's where like some of the magic that happens with what we do is when you create a project in BuilderComs, it brings in the stakeholders that need to be in there. So it's like creating that channel, but all you're doing is just creating a project instead of having to go invite people, do all of this. The right people are automatically in there.
Well, I'd love to talk to those people who don't think Slack is simple to use, because it's really not that hard. It's as simple as creating a channel, giving it a name, and adding people to it. It's really not that hard. It's maybe it's a little intimidating, but it's pretty fucking simple.
Yeah, no, I think that would be the better word. Is most people are intimidated by Slack. Like, a lot of big construction projects, everything lives in Slack and WhatsApp. Like, in the field, like that's what people are using on job sites.
I'm not surprised, because it's no different in what I'm doing in business. I meet people all the time. Let me get your WhatsApp number. I'm like, it's my phone number, bro. Like, why can't you just send me a text? Like, why do we have to go through WhatsApp? Or then I'll meet this person over here. Hey, join my Signal group. And I'm like, you really think that's any more encrypted than anything else?
Well,
like,
the thing is
you
you don't own any of this stuff. That's one thing people don't look at. Is like with BuilderComs, you own your information. Like, we create, there starts to become this database of all this messaging and stuff, and through integrations and stuff, we're going to be able to start to you're going to be able to start sending in like AI and ask it questions and learn stuff about your company and your customers that you would never be able to, because you now have access to all this data. It's like, people don't realize that, like with Slack and stuff, like they shut that down in a second and it's theirs. It's not yours.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And I don't store anything in my Slack that is really just conversation, really. Other than that, I mean, like, I have my own email list that's backed up, right? Like, all those steps that you take. Who is BuilderComs actually for? Is it for residential construction companies, or is it for, somebody like me who wants to build their own house and hire somebody to do it? Would I benefit from using BuilderComs? Like, talk a little bit more about that with your company.
Yeah, my main customers are contractors, builders, remodelers, roofer, like the actual business. That's who pays me. Now, from a homeowner perspective, our app's completely free to download and utilize. So you could be a homeowner, or say in your case, you want to build a custom home. You could tell your custom home builder, hey, I want to use BuilderComs. And they can provide that as an option That's as we continue to grow, we feel like that'll be one of our biggest marketing pushes. Will actually be homeowners that have done a project with a contractor or builder that use BuilderComs and say they do their windows and they want to get their roof done next. They're going to ask those roofing contractors if they used BuilderComs.
So it's like a referral network inside of it too. That's
Yeah,
really freaking
there's
cool,
a
man.
few
That's
yeah, there's a
awesome.
few different things that come into play. Like I'm just trying to build the communication solution for the construction industry, but there's other stuff that comes into play out of that, and we're getting ready to roll out. Well, actually, this will be August, so we have integrations, so we'll be able to like when you talk about stuff talking to it's talking back and forth and being able to work with bigger players, because we're not a full project management solution or CRM. We're designed to pick up where they fall off. So through the integrations that we build out, we can now work with these other softwares to 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 specifically collect this data and the communication in this piece with a simple tool that anybody can deploy.
That's so cool, man. And you're so like I can hear it in your voice the way you talk about this. We got integration. Like you're so like
Well, it's the
just
first
passionate
podcast.
about.
I know it's not going to be coming out till later, so I can say we got them. Like, because we're working on, they should be squared up maybe tomorrow morning. I got a meeting about it, but like it's stuff we're doing.
So I mean, how long have when did BuilderComs actually launch as a finished product for profit?
Well, so there's two different timelines we could talk about. So you could say the beginning of 2023, but we launched under a different brand. I ended up rebranding the company September, October of 2023. I consider that a real launch. Uh,
Okay, so October of 2023, you launched BuilderComs. So coming up on a 1 year anniversary, right? Are you still having fun with it? Like, are you still like just enamored with the process and excited to get up and go to work on it every
yes
day?
and no. I mean, it's any business you have. It's a roller coaster, man. It truly is. I'm excited for where we're at, what we're doing, everything that's happening. Uh, but at the same time, there's a lot of hurdles that you have to overcome.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of shit you have to deal with that you would rather not have to deal with, but that's just kind of what comes with it, right? Like I don't like dealing with the back end shit. I love talking to veterans and recording and setting up guest meetings and all of that stuff, right? But I don't like posting on LinkedIn or writing emails or answering emails or sending the invite emails, right? Like it's just that's business. That's just how it goes, right? There's always those things that you don't want to do. So let's talk about your core values, man. I've said it a couple of times on this show. I say a lot of things a lot of times on this show, but I had a interesting meeting with Matthew Banco the first time before I guested on his podcast. He's a Air Force. He's still doing the thing, right? And he's got a show called Acknowledge to Action, and he lives by this philosophy that we have a MEPS to get in, right? And he has this idea that there's a MEPS to get out. And by that, he means MEPS with two S's, right? So mental, emotional, physical, social, and spiritual. And you're a very spiritual man, from what I understand. And I didn't have spirituality in my life. Well, I was forced to have spirituality in my life when I was a child. And then kind of lose touch with that over the course of my career, which I think is very common of combat infantrymen in particular. And then when I had my ayahuasca journey last year, really got back into the spirituality and see how important a role that plays in my life, whether I believe in the same thing that you believe in or not. I definitely believe in a higher power for sure. I just still trying to figure out what that looks like for me. So tell me, how has that been such a foundation in your life, and how has that helped you stay, and move forward in your journey?
I would agree with everything you just said. Like from my perspective, like I was raised in the church, fell out of that. I think that's where you get a lot of the wanting to go out. I don't know if that's where you get the wanting to go out and party and have a good time or not, but then you fall out of that, and now like what you it's more relevant. Like I got a 6-year-old kid and stuff, and like I believe there is a God. And do I go to church every Sunday? No. Uh, but I think you have to believe in something, whatever that is. It might be different for everybody, but I don't think it's just by happenstance that we're here having this conversation right now. Like I just don't. I cannot put that together in my head. That like that's I believe the universe is never wrong, and it's up to us to take the action and figure out the outcome.
I'm with you on that. I think the universe leaves us clues, and I think the universe puts people and places and things in our path for a reason to teach us lessons and to drop those clues for us. I totally agree with that. Another one of your core values is family. Tell me what family means to you.
Family. So we spend a lot of time running from everything that we should be embracing. And I told my dad this probably a couple years ago. Is I've spent my entire life running from discipline when I've been at my absolute best when I'm in a highly disciplined regiment. And I don't mean like in the Marine Corps, just when I am very disciplined in my life, I'm at my absolute best. And it's the same thing with family. I spent a lot of time, especially professionally, like pushing off the people that should be the closest to me and I should rely on the most. And I think a lot of that comes into you can have some embarrassment because those are the closest people to you and you don't want them to see you at your weakest. And we tend to push that away. So for me, currently, family matters a lot. Like my mother-in-law lives with us. My sister has 4 kids about to be 5 and they live in Texas, and all we try to like, how do we get these kids to grow up together, and like trying to rekindle these relationships that I spent so much time not necessarily putting water on them, but just letting them fizzle out. And the same thing with like my parents. Like you just were independent. I think I can talk as a whole, especially for uh, infantry guys, is we're very independent beings and we rely on ourselves and those buddies that are very, very close to us. But we'll never really let ourselves be vulnerable in those situations, and family, especially with that, because those are people around you all the time. And for most of us, we're the backbone of that. And we need to be the ones that hold it together and pour it together. And, my brother-in-law, you don't know, my brother-in-law was in the Army. My sister was in the Army. And me and him agree on this. Is like, we need to come together. These kids need to grow up. They need to know each other. We need to be a family. And is it going to be easy? No. But it should be a focus. It should be something that we're trying to stoke the fire on instead of just letting the fire go out, which is, I think, inherently what we do, because a lot of times that you just don't want to face those demons.
Man, I agree so much with that because, like, for example, I spent the better part of my teenage years running away from my brother who wanted to be, he's younger. So you know that dynamic is, right? Like where older brother goes, younger brother wants to go. And I've spent the majority of my adult life longing to be closer to my brother. And now that he has 3 kids, especially, like I want to be Uncle Adam and watch him raise his two girls and boy. And every chance I get, it's really cool because here in Florida, out of Melbourne, there's a really cheap 2-hour flight up to Pittsburgh where he lives. So I can just kind of hop on that when I have a spare week to take, because it only flies once a week, right? But it'll cost me $100 to get up there instead of $1,000 to get up there for a whole weekend. You know what I mean? And whenever our schedules align, I'm with you. I'm no longer running from them, I'm running towards that because I see how important it is, right? And what that does for me internally and how that makes me feel, and contributing to helping inspire him to raise his kids, giving him advice, and just I totally agree with that, man. We spend so much time running from that shit, and it's just not good for us. Your next core value is the American dream. Tell me what the American dream means to you, and how you see that. I think often you hear American dream anymore, and people are, oh, white picket fence, blah blah blah. That's not how I think of it. I'm fairly certain that's not how you think of it. I'm interested to hear how you think of the American dream, and then I'll kind of share with you how I see it, and we'll see where we fall
Yeah,
here.
no. So, I mean, we can start. So, I have American Dream tattooed across my stomach with a money sign behind it. Uh, the American Dream is your dream, what you want to go chase. So, when I talk about in my core beliefs, is we believe in God, family, and the American Dream. The American Dream is what you want. I believe in chasing that and making it a reality. And it doesn't matter. It's going to be different for everybody. It's not like you say this white picket fence, American dream. I believe in freedom and the ability to make decisions and be able to chase your dreams. And for every American, that's different. And that's what the great thing about America is that we don't all have to agree on everything to chase our American dream, and we can all live together if we let it happen that way. Like, if more people would just realize that we're more alike than we are disalike, and we could all chase our American dream and have it, it would be a whole different world.
Brother, you see my smile right now because I very much believe what you believe. I phrase it differently or whatever, but to me, the American dream is time and financial freedom, meaning that's different for everybody. And what that looks like for me is enough money and my time to be wherever I want with whoever I want in the world, doing exactly what I want to be doing, whether that's working from my laptop, recording one of these shows, or my wife and I in Paris enjoying our anniversary, right? Like that is the American dream to me. And, believe it or not, that's so much more attainable than I think anybody gives themselves credit for or really sees it. And it doesn't have to look like, $25 million in the bank and this, that, and the other, right? Something as simple as learning how money works and $10,000 a month, which is a really achievable goal in a side hustle, even, which is still means you're an entrepreneur pursuing something that is going to set you free, can make that possible for you, right? Would you agree to that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, it's everybody's story, and it can be what you want it to be. You just have to be willing to dream it. And as veterans, I don't think we dream enough. And it's powerful to have dreams, and it can be anything that you want it to be. We can do anything.
Yeah, man. And that leads me to our next little venture that you have going on. Talk to me about Golf Company Ventures and what that means to you, what it is, and your plans for that in the future. Because I think this one's probably going to be fire.
Yeah, so that's that's what I'm doing all of this for, is to get that off the ground. Like, I feel like this is, I was called to do BuilderComs to be able to get me to where I need to be. I'm always saying, like, I have to become the founder that can have $100 million exit from BuilderComs. Like, it's up to me to become this man that can do that. And my goal from that is to then fund Golf Company Ventures without having to go raise any money and have people dictate what the fuck I'm going to do with the money. And I'm going to go out and I'm going to invest in veteran businesses, and I'm going to be the catalyst, because that's what that at my heart is my superpower, is I'm a catalyst. I'm not necessarily great at all this other stuff, but we can sit down in a room and we can figure some shit out and put a game plan together and let me light that on fire. And that's what Golf Company Ventures is going to be. It's going to be an opportunity for me, and I'm going to focus in on infantry, special forces, contractors, tier one operators, because I truly believe there's a differentiator that when most venture capitalists, I can speak to this because I'm currently raising money for my company right now. Most venture capitalists are looking for 1 out of 10 companies to be good. And they don't care if 9 of them go bankrupt. And I think that's bullshit. I think we can do 9 out of 10. I talked to my wife. We just drove to Charlotte. And I had a comment. I said, I think we can hit 90+% wins if we stick to this criteria, because it is 100% the person. And if they have the right idea and you can throw some capital in it, I know they're going to eat. And that's what I want to do. Is I just want to put people, you think of like back when Zeke was playing running back and he was just like, just let me eat. Like, I feel like we can take veterans, especially in that demographic, that have a great idea or a great business, and we can throw some capital in there and just let them eat, because that's what they're really, really good at. They're really good at the grind. They're really good at just producing results and getting shit done. And that's what excites me. And that's what we're going to do, is we're going to continue to build BuilderComs to be able to fund golf company ventures long term. And I'm just going to move into being a catalyst. And I'm just going to make shit happen.
So with golf company ventures, obviously that's like a venture capitalist play for you, but are you going to include anything but money, or are you going to give some mentorship and guidance to these people? Like how do you envision
I'm going to be
that going?
involved. I don't believe
So you're not just going to be the guy who throws money at it, like
that's
you were
not
saying,
being a
and just
catalyst.
doesn't.
Like, that's not. I believe that one of the biggest catalysts you can have for people is being able to stroke a check. But the second biggest catalyst is to be able to just be there and be an open phone call to help get people.
Yeah, a sounding board,
help
a
people get where
mentor
they
for
need to
sure.
go. Because it's a lonely word. Entrepreneurship is very lonely because you face a lot of the same things that you face when you're transitioning. There's a lot of unknown, a lot of uncertainty. And if you don't have anybody to talk to or don't have anybody that's been there, it's really hard to navigate it. So I feel like I can be that piece that just creates success, and we can do something amazing. Like,
Brother, I can tell you right now, like you will be that piece because of the way you speak about it right now. You know what I mean? Like there's no question in my mind, we're going to have a conversation a year from now and you're going to be exactly where you want to be, doing exactly what you want to do, probably having an even bigger impact on our community than you even thought. I think the same thing's probably true for what I'm doing. I hear it from other angles, right? I have other people telling me the same thing. It's just, it's really hard to sit in this seat and believe that right now, even though I know that's the end goal, and I'm not going to quit. I'm just going to keep grinding until I get to where it needs to go. I love that, man. How far away realistically do you think you are from BuilderComs hitting that $100 million exit?
I mean, it's hard to say. Right now, I'm developing a soft, like, it's a dot. Like, if you built a website when .com went bust, that right now is what it's like building software. Because like in the last 6-12 months, there's been a lot of changes in not just venture capitalists, but just in the software space. So
Well, yeah, I mean, you no longer need a developer to build your own software. You can go learn on a no-code tool and build your own software right now. So, market saturation is crazy. There's so many people out there trying to create and get their slice of the pie, right? There's a lot of competition out there. And obviously you're gaining the social proof that you need. A lot of companies are coming at you saying, hey, we need you to get into the commercial space because this is a big problem and you're solving it, right? And I think that's where your advantage is. So who knows, right?
I think the best answer to that question is I have to be the man that can hang on till 100 million, because you got to be able to. There's days I would take ridiculous numbers for this company. Like, if somebody was like here with a check, I would seriously consider some crazy numbers. And then there's days where it's like, I'm not selling this thing for less than $1 billion. Like, it's all a journey. My goal is to become the guy that can get that there, because the company can't get there if I don't become the guy that can get there. So whether that's what we exit this company for or not, my goal is to become that guy so I can continue this journey on.
Man, that's so amazing. Who knows, man? Maybe in a year you're
You
there,
never
right?
know.
Like
I
it's
mean,
no telling.
crazy things have happened in this world.
Yep. Yep.
I'll get there
Man,
when it's supposed to be. That's the best when the universe aligns, and that is supposed when I'm supposed to step full circle into that, and the wordage ready for that, it'll happen, because that's what I'm chasing, and I'm going to make this happen. It's probably not going to happen on my timelines, because if it was my timelines, we'd already sold this company for $1 billion.
yeah, it's definitely not how it works. How do you balance your personal life with your professional responsibilities? How do you stay sane? Like, what do you have some practices, mindfulness, meditation, any kind of things like that? How do you stay sane and not burn out?
Yeah, I mean, I work out 5, 6 days a week. I try to eat a very clean diet. I walk. I I just think you're going to hit brick walls no matter what. All we can do is prepare our bodies and ourselves to be as mentally and physically prepared for it as we possibly can. Uh, so that's what I do. And
That's same, man. I couldn't agree more. Like, start my day with a 4 mile walk with the dogs at a pretty good clip. Come do some deep work for 2 hours, then hit up body weight exercises in the garage. Some days it's pool PT because I did just have a spine surgery or whatever. But you're right, man. Several times, as I started booking guests, I didn't think I was going to get a lot of bites on the Facebook post that you responded to. Boy, was I wrong. And that comes with a whole new set of problems, right? Now I got to learn how to manage my time and schedule people efficiently and respond to emails and DMs and everything efficiently. And it's like I quickly found myself feeling overwhelmed, but just in the way I physically and mentally prepare myself with the tools I was given from, the integration from the ayahuasca ceremony to the course I'm in to give back to the charity that sent me on that trip to be a integration coach for other veterans, I'm way more equipped to handle shit like that now. And it only lasts about half a day versus before it would have sent me completely out of control for months. You know what I mean? And I love that everybody I ask that question really does have some kind of mindfulness practice, return to their breath, exercise. The diet means the world, right? Like what we put into our bodies matters, and you don't think about how connected everything is. And so it's a theme, right? At this point, 17, 18 episodes in, 18 of you all saying the same things. It really becomes like the way, if you will.
yeah, and then one of the things I heard you say there is there's a lot of structure. I still run a very structured life. Like I got my wife on that program as well. Like we get up same time, we do the same. Like now we take our son to school, we go to the gym immediately after that. We come back here, eat breakfast. I go to work. She goes to work. We both work from home. Uh, like it's structured. My son gets off the bus at 3 o'clock every day. He goes to bed at 7. I'm typically working still. Like it's there's structure there. There's that discipline that we try to run for. And I think like that's when we get out. That's one of the reasons we're lost, is because what's the first
Because
thing
there's no more
everybody do is we're
structure.
like, no discipline, craziness,
yeah.
like, and all it does is wreak
Yeah.
havoc on our lives, because we're not meant to be like that's not how we're meant to be. But we're trying to rebel against whatever that last 4, 18, 20 years what that was. We're trying to not have that in our life, but really that's what we need, that even more than anything when we get out, having some structure. Like if I was talking to guys like, and I in September I'm going to be talking to a group of veterans live that are transitioning, and that's one of the things I'm going to tell them is continue to have structure. When you get out, even if you don't have a job, get up, go to the gym, find a routine instead of just saying, oh, finally, I don't have to do any of this shit. because that's the worst thing you can do.
I'm in such agreement with you because it's great for about a month when you get out, and then and then you're fucked, right?
It's
Like
hard to pick it back up.
yeah, and I remember too, right? Like getting that DD 214 and driving off post for the last time. Like fuck the Army, they can't tell me shit anymore. And I think that's very common, right? Like I loved the Army a lot. I was very bitter because my career was ended for me, just like you were, I imagine, and didn't know how to handle that. But still, there's some kind of element about getting that DD 214, right? Like you hear people talk about that all the time, right? Like your buddy's getting out and they get that piece of paper, and you're so excited to get your piece of paper that you immediately drop everything, PT, sleep, getting up early, any kind of structure that you had. And I like that you point that out because yes, my life is very structured, but it's not structured to the minute, right? Like, so some days I don't sit down on my computer till 8 o'clock because I took a longer walk that morning with the dogs, right? Instead of going 4 miles, I went 5 miles. Or, I had to run to the store and get coffee because I only drink 1 cup of coffee a day, but I don't have any more coffee. Last night I was working till 10:30 at night, right? Like usually bedtime for me is between 9:30 and 11 most nights. It's not super structured, but there is routine built into my day where I've built in that time to take care of myself. And I think that's what's important.
Well, I think what people need to take out of what you just said there is it doesn't we have this all or nothing mentality, and I can still come to fault with this now, is like it's either 100% the most rigid, what it doesn't have to be that way. You can have, there's flexibility in there because every day is going to be different. There's going to be an ebb and flow, but you need to have a core structure to how your day is going to operate.
Yes, sir. I agree with that 100%. What advice do you have for veterans transitioning who want to get into entrepreneurship, who don't know that it's an option? Like what unconventional advice, just things that you learned along the way, would you want them to know first thing, right?
I think understanding it's going to be hard, and you find something that you're passionate about, and it can change. You can do, like we talked about, rebranding the company and like you can pivot, you can change, you grow as an individual. Your company is going to continue to grow with you. It's going to be a love-hate relationship. So pick something that you're going to love when you hate it. Like that's what we have to do. Because if you don't, you're going to give up. And if you give up, you're probably giving up just before it becomes something amazing.
Man, such a great answer because that's so true. Like, you hear it, all the mentors I have in my life through my journey building my business, they all tell me, I see these people quit right before they're about to break through, right? They just quit before they're about to break through, and it sucks, man, because it leaves a bad taste in their mouth and they'll never come back and try it again. And so you're right, it's important to be passionate about what you're doing. And even more than that, I think too, not being afraid to try different things to find what you're passionate about, which leads me to my next question for you is, how would you say vets can uncover what matters most and aligns to their core values in their lives? How can they look inside themselves and really find out who they are?
I think go find your core values, or like I call them core beliefs, that are not what the military gave you. So if we think about it, like core values and stuff in business is something relatively new to the scene. Like, but the military's always had it. So like you get out and you have these core values that are instilled in you in the military. We have to find our own and have an understanding of what those are, and then find alignment with that, with whatever you're going to go do. So I think too often I see people just default back to the core values they originally learned. It's okay for that to be part of it. Like I think discipline, all that stuff, loyalty, like that stuff is all very important, but let it be you. Because at the end of the day, you're the one holding yourself accountable to it. And if you make it something that's truly not your value, your belief, it's going to be hard to make decisions based on that. like my number two core belief is we don't complain, we take action and figure it out. Like if you spend, we're at, a couple hours here, I think people can realize, yeah, like that's probably Ron. Like this stuff comes through you. Don't be afraid to just say, like, this is who I am, this is my core beliefs, and I understand this, and then make decisions and build a business based off of that.
Man, I love that too, because my foundational value is discipline. I rely on my discipline every single day. I think it's such an underutilized skill that people don't give themselves credit for, but I'm very much the same way as you are. Like, I don't care if we bitch about it, but we better be taking action while we're bitching about it, right? Like it's okay if you're taking the action and you're bitching the whole time about the action. Something I was raised with in the army: a bitching soldier is a happy soldier. I think that can be true, right? Because if you're still taking action, I don't give a shit what you have to say about it. You're still doing something to move the needle forward, and I couldn't agree with you more, man. What resources or strategies would you recommend to veterans to help them navigate their transition and find that purpose in entrepreneurship?
That's a great question. I think YouTube is one of the most amazing things that's ever been created, because you can pretty much go on there and not just anything that you need to know search, but anything that you're feeling, anything that you don't quite understand, you can probably find at least a dozen videos on there of somebody that's dealt with it or understands it or something that can point you in a different direction, no matter what you're going through. From podcasts to just whatever videos. I am not afraid to use YouTube and just search it out and just say, like, here's what I'm dealing with, and find other people out there that have recorded, they have been willing to talk about it because they figured it out. And I think that's an underutilized resource from that perspective, because you have to be humble and you have to be willing to say, I don't have all the answers to this problem, but I want to know them, and you can search them. The internet is an amazing place, especially when you have YouTube. I mean, I think people utilize YouTube to understand uh, problems and how to like do stuff, or YouTube University. But you can get on there and be like, hey, I'm a Marine Corps combat veteran that's dealing with this, and I don't know what to do. And you would be surprised the videos and the help that you can get out there from people that are going to be you. Like, it's not just going to be somebody talking about it. It's going to be you talking about it.
Oh man, this is a phenomenal answer, because that's exactly what I want this show to be. I want them to see that I sat down with Ron Nussbaum for 2 hours. He's a combat Marine veteran who's built a successful business, who has plans to exit at $1 billion and fund another venture capitalist thing that gives back to veterans, right? Like that was the whole idea. So much so that I don't watch TV other than YouTube anymore. I learn so much from YouTube. I build it into my routine, right? I want this podcast to do well, so I study other people's podcasts. You're absolutely right. And also be aware of the YouTube gurus, right? The people who are full of shit, because that's out there. I've
They're
fallen victim to
everywhere.
them, spent
It's
thousands of dollars.
guru, whatever. It's the world we live in right now.
Yeah, but you'll know pretty quick, who those people are that are full of shit versus those people who are real. And man, that's such a great answer. I really like that one, dude. Are there any key insights or personal mantras, philosophies, anything that have guided you through your journey that you think would be valuable to the audience?
Hey, the 7 Ps, proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance. I picked that up at boot camp, and I've used that ever since. That was part of my leadership strategy for years. Was like, people would just be coming into my office and like, Ron's going to tell me I didn't plan good enough. That's why we performed poorly. And like, I don't know. It's just the first thing that came to mind when you said that.
That's a good one, man. I actually learned that before I ever joined the Army. I had a cousin who was already in the Army by the time I was joining, and that's one of the first conversations we had when I had called him to tell him I was joining the Army. He was like, "Okay," but it was the 5 P's from him. So proper planning prevents piss poor performance, and that's a tongue twister. I encourage the audience to try that one. You've practiced that a lot, clearly. That's definitely something you could tell you've used more than once, but. Reflecting on your journey, Ron, what do you think the most fulfilling aspect of your transition from military to entrepreneurship has been?
Taking control.
I love it, man. I knew you were going to say something like that. It was really figuring out who the hell you are as a person, right?
Yeah, and being able to
and that looks like taking control.
Just take control of it and be able to be okay. Like, what I've understood, or what I've learned is like all I can do is be the best Ron Nussbaum I can possibly be. And like that's all I can be. And all I have to do is just continue to chase that. And that's what would lead to the success. And by being an entrepreneur, you have 100% control over that and what that looks like.
Man, so good. Tell everybody how they can connect with you, Ron, to learn more about BuilderComs, follow your journey, that kind of stuff. Where can they find you?
You can find me everywhere, anywhere. I'm out there. And Ron Nussbaum on any social media, BuilderComs on any social media, BuilderComs.com. I'm really, if you're looking for me and you can't find me, there's probably a problem there, I guess, because I am pretty much everywhere.
Love it, man. Anything else you want to leave the audience with before we get you out of here?
No, man, I've absolutely enjoyed this. This has been a great conversation. I think this is what people need to do. People need to sit down and open up and have a conversation about their experiences. Have a real conversation about their experiences, not what the expectations are, what people feel like they should say, what they should feel. All of that kind of stuff. Like, just sit down and have a conversation, because the story is what the story is, and let it be that. But don't let it be the reason why not. Let it be the reason why. Because that's, as veterans, we have that. We have a story that is a catalyst for the rest of our life if we let it be that.
I think, moreover, we earned it.
Absolutely.
We earned the right to be able to let our story be the reason why, not the
And when you put it that way, it's so amazing that so many people let it be the opposite.
Yeah, man. Ron, man, thank you so much for your time, brother. I'm so grateful that we got to have this conversation. I, like you, think that there's not enough of these conversations going on, and that's why I fell into this, however it may have happened. And I'm going to keep doing this because I do believe in the mission and that this can help and change lives. Thank you for being here, man. I hope it was a great time for you. I can't wait to release this to the internet and let people get in touch with you and see all the great things that come. Like, it seems like when I release an episode with another veteran, and so I really do appreciate you. We'll see you next week, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget to rate, review, like, subscribe, reply to the emails when you're getting them. If you're on the email list, if you're not, sign up for the newsletter. That way you don't miss an episode. Give us your feedback. We very much want to collect your feedback to make this show better. Suggest guests to come on here, questions for our guests, anything we're not covering that you might want covered, please reach out to us. We would love to get your information out there. I read and reply to all my emails, so please don't be afraid to reach out. And ladies and gentlemen, Ron Nussbaum. That's our show, and I'm truly thankful you've joined us at The Strategic Veteran. If our conversation today sparked curiosity, or if you're ready to elevate your game, I'm here to help. Visit thestrategicveteran.com for exclusive show notes and resources, or to book a coaching session directly with me. Take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and share your review. Your support makes all the difference. For more insights and daily strategies, let's connect on LinkedIn and keep the conversation going. Remember, this isn't just a podcast, it's your strategic advantage in action. Until our next rendezvous, stay bold and continue the mission.